Have you ever caught yourself in the middle of a sentence, suddenly realizing you don't actually have to say any of this? You're explaining again. You're explaining something that you have explained 10 different ways. Your heart's pounding, your mind is spinning, and you're reaching just for the right words, hoping that this time the narcissist will finally understand. That was Annie too. Over the years, she had learned to twist herself into knots, trying to make sense of things for someone who never intended to ever hear her. She believed that if she just found the perfect phrasing, if she stayed calm, if she laid out her reasoning step by step, maybe he'd stop accusing, stop twisting, stop pretending not to understand her. This is Annie's story, and I'm telling it for her. It was late afternoon that day. The house was quiet in that uneasy way that happens after a fight. Not stormy, just tense. Annie stood by the kitchen counter, drying the same coffee cup over and over again, just buying time. She knew her husband would be back to talk. Except with Santino, talking was never about trying to understand each other. It was about cornering. He walked in with that half smile that she had come to dread. "So," he said, "are you ready to admit that you overreacted?" Annie's stomach tightened. She tried to steady her breath. She knew the script by heart. First, he'd act calm. Then he'd reframe everything that had happened until she ended up being the problem. She started explaining, just like she always did, how what he had said hurt her, how she hadn't imagined the look on his face, how she was simply asking for respect. But halfway through the second sentence, something inside her shifted. It wasn't defiance, it wasn't rage, it was quieter than that. It was a flicker of clarity. She looked at him, and she really looked at him hard and saw the same expression she had seen 100 times before. He wasn't listening. He was waiting for his opening where he could slide in a twist, a jab, or a blame. And that's when Annie stopped talking, mid-sentence. She didn't trail off shyly. She just stopped. She placed the coffee cup down on the counter with a soft click, folded the towel. She just stood there, silent. It startled him. "Go on," he said. "Finish what you were saying." But she didn't. For the first time in years, she refused to perform the endless dance of explanations. She wasn't trying to win. She was choosing not to play the game. And although the moment was small, barely noticeable to anyone outside that might have been watching, it was a turning point for Annie. She didn't realize it then, but silence would become one of her victories. If you've lived in the grip of a narcissist, you know that endless loop. You explain, and then they twist. You clarify, and then they mock. You stay calm, and they escalate. It's not a misunderstanding. It's a tactic. Narcissists don't engage in explanations. They don't want to find common ground. They do it to stay in control. The longer you explain, the more rope they have to pull you back into their narrative. Many survivors look back and they cringe at how much they explained, how they justified, defended themselves. But here's the truth. You weren't weak. You were trying to be understood by someone who never intended to understand you. Stopping that cycle isn't easy. It so often begins with one quiet, almost one moment that is barely noticeable. Like Annie's, when something inside of you whispers, "No more." It's that shift from trying to convince them to simply knowing your truth. This one's for the woman who rehearsed her explanations like attorneys giving their closing arguments. For the one who twisted her words into careful shapes, walking that tightrope of someone else's mood. This one's for the survivor who finally realized you don't have to justify your reality to someone committed to never understanding you. Your clarity doesn't need their permission. Your truth doesn't require their acceptance. Sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say is nothing. I'm Keil Hackley, attorney, author of the book Undercurrent, and your host here. Annie's story reminds us that truth matters, especially the quiet truths that get laughed over, minimized, or missed. I want to invite you to share your voice. Tell me in the comments if you've had moments like Annie's. The moments that you stopped explaining yourself. Your story is what keeps this community alive. And please remember, you're stronger than you ever believed. You're a warrior against narcissistic abuse, and you will never, ever give up on what matters to you. You're tenacious. Thank you for being here. Thank you for always showing up. And until next time, I honor your truth. And please know that you are never alone, not here. I will see you soon in the next episode. And until then, promise me you'll take good care of yourself. Bye.